Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello folks, we're back here today with segment 5 of reviewing the Banc review for Brendan Dassey. This is Mr. Berg's basically closing. He saved 5 minutes for it, and he basically spends most of it talking and defending the fact that he believes Brendan didn't perceive a promise. And the reason why Brendan didn't perceive a promise is because he was warned a handful of times at the beginning of interviews that they couldn't make him any promises. So therefore, he did not perceive any promises. And I don't know, I find it a little amusing, but so he ends up answering to the judges, and they've got lots of questions about it, and we'll go ahead and move into the first segment here, and we'll come on back.
So do people never say contradictory things in interrogations? That seems like an extreme point.
A consistent theme to Dassey was...
So you agree that they could have said, we're not making any promises, and then they could have turned around 5 minutes later and made a promise.
Of course they could have.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the question is, did they, not could it have happened?
They didn't, because that statement re-invoked the theme that he needed to get it off his chest, that the only way that he was going to be free of the images in his mind, the video in his head, they used that language.
Well, which they have assumed is they assume that this video in his mind is there. They assume that he knows all of these things. And I guess I'm not really at rest about what he actually knows, that they don't tell him, Brendan, we already know all of this. How about the gun? How about the this? How about the that?
The point is that they made very clear that they couldn't make any promises. And the point I'm trying to make is that the idiom was just re-invoking a theme, which was, you should get these things out of your mind. You should get them off of your chest. They said that repeatedly in the first interview. So there's no way he would have interpreted that as a promise. In any event, we're on habeas here. This is now the 6th time that a court has reviewed this case in a decade.
Right, and a number of courts have found that there's a real problem with this. You've got the district court, magistrate judge, and you've got the panel in this case. So I don't know that this is a slam dunk.
So there you have Mr. Berg basically laying out that he feels that because Brendan Dassey was warned that they couldn't make him any promises, and that saying the truth will set you free is just like saying, you know, get it off your chest. Whether he's realizing that Brendan isn't able to understand that, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much that Luke Berg is able to understand, because I don't know. I mean, even maybe the judge was maybe suggesting that to him when she was talking about her 5-year-old grandson, and that she hoped he was, you know, that saying something to him would be different than saying something to her 5-year-old grandson, or that she hoped he had moved beyond that point. I don't know. Maybe she's saying that he's missing the point. I'm not sure. That was, to me, a very interesting statement that she made, but the point is that he then goes on to say right here again, I don't know if you guys caught it, that we're on habeas here. He does that. I mean, it's literally the only tool in his bag is saying that we're on habeas here. We're on habeas here, because then he feels like that should minimize the amount that they're allowed to review in the case. And he's basically telling them something like, if they don't already know, these are judges that have managed to make it to the 7th Circuit Court and are appointed judges on the 7th Circuit Court. And here's, you know, Berg taking it upon himself to remind them multiple times that this is a habeas case. So I thought that was a mistake for him the first time, and I think I was right. And I can't believe he's doing it again here. But beyond that, back in the beginning of that clip, when they're talking about whether or not investigators could say, you know, we can't make you any promises, and whether or not it's possible that they could make a promise after saying that. And the judge, you know, the Chief Judge Wood there is trying to get that through to his head, that there is a possibility that could happen, and he finally acquiesces to yes, that there's a possibility of that, but he's immediately saying no, but that's not the case here. And you hear the judges chuckling, and the thing that I thought was interesting is that I swear I heard one of the male judges chuckling. And if we heard one of the male judges chuckling at that part, then that could most likely be Easterbrook, if he was listening to that part and found that funny. So I think that if it was Easterbrook, and I'm not saying it was, I'm just saying, me using a little bit of deduction here, thinking it could possibly be Easterbrook, and it could be that he may be considering Brendan's petition of habeas corpus with real sincerity.
In all of the filings, in all of the opinions, you will not find a single case, not one. Not from the Supreme Court, not from a federal court, not from a state court, not on de novo review, not on habeas review. You will not find one case finding a confession involuntary in circumstances similar to this. All of the cases that we have that are even remotely close to this case go exactly the same way. Courts have consistently held that minor lies about what they know is not coercive. They've held that vague assurances are not coercive. Fatherly manner is not coercive. Courts have consistently held that.
All of that may be true, but the question is the recipient. I mean, we're trying to figure out, when they know that this is a 16-year-old at a minimum, whether saying those things, if I were to say things to my 4-year-old grandson, he's not going to understand it the way you would, or at least I hope that maybe you've moved a bit beyond my wonderful grandson, William. But you say things to an adult that are not the same as you would say things to a younger person.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that there may be cases where adult defendants have heard things that are these exact same words doesn't tell you whether saying them to a child is coercive.
The whole point of AEDPA is to prevent the second guessing of juries and state courts a decade later. The district court and the panel majority did exactly that. Please reverse.
Now, I get that the AEDPA, which is what he was talking about when he said AEDPA, the AEDPA is something that was created by the Supreme Court, and it has a purpose, and I get that. The thing is that it also has in it kind of a clause, whatever you want to call it, where it says that a federal judge can issue habeas relief if it finds that there was a very, very, basically egregious fault in the finding of the facts in the case. And I think that the finding of the facts in this case by the state courts were bad, very bad. The fact that they did not evaluate Brendan and realize that he was not equipped to deal with this interrogation in any way, shape, or form. I mean, not at all. No, there's no way that Brendan was ready for this interrogation that happened to him. It's just not. He wasn't. And you look at all the signs that he was just a lamb to the slaughter, and that this got through no problem. Nobody seemed to think that was a problem. So that's where I have an issue with this case, obviously. So that's about it. We're done with Mr. Berg's closing arguments. That's it for reviewing the on-bank review, but you may see me revisit some of this stuff in later videos. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you later.